Ewan Somerville here for qualify.co.uk ahead of the impending EU referendum. I'm here with Lib Dem Councillor for Bickington, North Devon, David Chalmers. So, David, I'll briefly explain your position on the EU.
For me, there are three issues here. It's the opportunity, the security and the prosperity that being part of the EU offers to us as a country and to the people here in North Devon. Opportunity, the opportunity of being able to trade and do business with the world's largest market of over 500 million consumers. The security of working with our partners, being together, being able to advise and being able to influence what's going on in the EU, and at a moment of what I would say very dangerous time for the world, and prosperity. The prosperity that it's actually brought to this country over the last 40 years, and the prosperity that being a part of the EU will offer us going forward.
Someone suggests that Brussels is an autocracy, so what would you say to those?
There is a democratic element to the way that the European Union is run. It's an understanding. There's a real sort of misunderstanding of how the European Union actually works. I mean, laws are initiated through the Commission, which is basically like a sort of a glorified civil service. We don't elect our own civil servants, so we wouldn't elect members of the Commission. You have national governments that want their own sort of say and input into what goes on, and we therefore have the European Council, which is the heads of government and the various sort of heads of departments in different countries. So there's a national element that's brought into that. Then also you have the European Parliament, where we have MEPs. Britain has 10% of the MEPs, and that is where they actually have to debate and agree upon those laws going forward as well. Only 13% of the laws in the UK are actually come from Europe.
Do the cons of immigration outweigh the pros?
No, I'm a big believer in immigration, and I think that it's been a real benefit to this country, and as this country has prospered, that actually bringing in people to this country has helped us. One of the cornerstones of the European Union is free movement of people, so we will no way be able to get some sort of agreement. If we want access to the market of the European Union, they will demand in return free movement of people. The immigration card and the race card are what the outside have actually brought forward, because they've lost all the economic arguments. They know, and they're saying that actually being able to sort of put up our borders and hide behind some sort of protectionist wall is a price worth paying, and also that the economic downturn that will hit this country is a price worth paying. For that, I would say is not at all.
Qualify.co.uk, we've spoken to the public in Barnstable, and the majority have found that all the statistics and all the scaremongering are really unhelpful and not leading them to a decision, particularly young people. So what else can the campaigns do to engage with voters?
Well, I would say that we need to be putting forward the positive message and actually sort of debating one another instead of throwing up sort of scare tactics. 16 and 17-year-olds should have been given the vote in this referendum. They have as much right to have a say in the future of this country as people in their 60s, 70s and 80s. They were not given the vote. I think that is wrong, and I'm hoping though that they will be able to talk and influence some of their relatives, because what we need to people understand is that this is about the future of this country, it's not about its past.
Okay, so what one point would you say to an undecided 18-year-old right now?
I would say think of the opportunities this offers you, being part of the EU, and embrace those. You don't have to go and live for all your life or work and trade and do business with the EU, but the prosperity that it brings to this country, it's you don't want to close off those opportunities. We're in part of a bigger world, much more interconnected world. Even in the last sort of 20, 30 years we've seen that happen.
And finally, you were at a local businesses meeting this morning.
Mm-hmm.
What are the main points of impacts of a Brexit on local businesses in North Devon?
Well, it boils down to the same, for them, a prosperous community enables their businesses to grow. So the big fear for them is that if we have a downturn in the economy of this country, which everyone is saying will happen, and it might be for 5 years, and it might be for 10 years, but then we know in this part of the world that probably means 20, 30 years, that they'll be catching up for the rest of their working lives. And they don't want to see that. They see it at the moment as actually it's working. The European Union is working. It might have problems, people talk about red tape, but actually we are one of the least regulated countries in the world. And for the ease of doing business, 5 of the top 10 countries in the world are actually members of the EU. Tourism is a really big, important industry for us here. It's a big part of what we are, as is agriculture. Both of those are heavily dependent upon us remaining in the EU. Tourism, why I say tourism is because we're standing here at the moment. I just want to remind people, back in 1990, out of 175 beaches around the southwest, only 3 were passed suitable for bathing. And eventually the EU brought the UK kicking and screaming into actually enacting laws from the directive from the EU to clean our beaches up. 40% of our sewage went untreated straight into the water. You would not go in that sea back in the 1980s and 1970s. You just wouldn't. That has changed. We actually now have some of the cleanest, the most wonderful, beautiful beaches in the world in Europe. That brings in tourists. That brings in, it makes it a much more safer, better environment for us to live in, and that is an actual direct result of us being in the EU.
Thank you very much for watching. That was Dave Chalmers, a Parish Councillor for Bickington, North Devon.